got a whale of a tale to tell you, lads, a whale of a tale or two, about the flapping fish and the girls I've loved on nights like this with the moon above. A whale of a tale, and it's all true, I swear by my tattoo.
So now I'm into some more weathering of the model after the dry brushing, and this will be using the washers. The washers I like to use, the Citadel wash range. Good range, nice and opaque for a wash, with still giving you a bit of clarity. Overcoats certain colours and just makes them look richer, or you can use it straight out as a wash to give it some shadow and depth. The colours for this particular project, obviously black, the Ogren Flesh, which is a reddish tone, which is what was airbrushed over the base colour of the model that I had, and of course I've got a little bit of a sepia colour, which is more of a brownish red. I'll also be trialling rust oil. Haven't really used it before. Pinched it out of my upcoming Christmas present, with permission of course. Another thing I'll be using is the older range of Citadel colours, their chestnut wash. It's not made anymore. It's a bit of a pity. It's a really nice product. It has just such good value on silvers and on blacks and on this sort of thing for giving a nice, rich, fresh, rusty tone. I'll also be using the initial colours that I dry brushed with. Snakebite leather, it's more of a pale tan for much newer areas, and probably even using some of the darker red brown that was the overall dry brush. That's the particular colour that was used for dry brushing the top of the hull above the waterline, to highlight that a bit more. Applying the washers, different ways you can apply them. As we've already seen, I've used an airbrush. Paintbrushes. Don't throw out your old paintbrushes, keep them. Pretty good. This one's an old natural fibre I've had, an old number 10 that's just been used to death over the years, so it's a great effects brush now. I start my washes with nice coarse bristle brushes in broad areas. The cheapy ones you buy in these dollar shops and $2 stores around the place, in the packets of 4 and 5, they're great. The bristle is rigid without being stiff. Holds the paint, being a natural fibre, holds the washes, being a natural fibre, but when you put it onto something, the wash flows out, so you then just give it a bit of a flick. Using a undipped brush as a secondary, you can just hold it on and again flick it some more. Helps drag it out if you want that sort of run down washed look. Obviously normal paint brushes apply as well, you know, thin brushes for getting into tight little crevices and cornices, and your heavier brushes for broader areas. I've already done some of the weathering or the rusting with the Ogren Flesh on the model, so now I'll tackle it using some of the lighter colours. Hopefully the camera will pick up what I've done, but you may make out just in these sort of areas here there's a change in colour. That's the Ogren Flesh, as I said, put on, and then using another drier brush just rubbed it out. And look, you can even use your fingertip just to give it a bit more spread, concentrating on areas where there's likely to be a little bit more hull movement, electrolysis, a bit more rust. Inside the scupper holes, originally airbrushed with the smoke. I put a couple of applications of the black Citadel. I don't want to make it black. I don't want it to be cartoony, so it still has that brownish look behind it. I've already applied the Ogren Flesh to it, Now I'm going to start working the colours up a bit lighter. And again, I don't know if you can see on the rakers where I've applied the Ogren flesh and dragged it back. The rakers are always getting a hammering. That's what's doing the damage to the ships. Always getting scored. Fresh steel marks, fresh rust marks. Going to look a little bit brighter than these other areas that are darker and have weathered and rusted longer. But enough chit chat. I'll put some washes out there so that you can see how I go about it. I'll do a bit of the sepia on it. Load the brush up, not too heavy, don't want to be flooding out. And then it's basically just in there like that, get it nice and wet, and just, as I said, a little bit of a flick to bring it down. Using your secondary brush, just gently, very gently over top. Now that's the water line, so I'm dragging it a little bit the other way as well, because not only is it rusting this way, it's washing through the waves, so it gets a little bit of a side wash. And again, like everything, it's not all meant to look the same. Not all going to have the same amount of rust staining on it. Not all going to have the same volume of
What's all excitement, Captain? What is it, Professor? We are at the base, and the island.
Volume of wash in it to give the effect. So using the brush, light and fluffy, just drag down. You can play with natural imperfections on the model as well that you might have missed with the sanding or the filling, or you've decided to leave as is. Now sometimes I won't even use the second brush on all of it. I'll just basically run it out, and that's why I like using the stiffer bristle. Okay, where the paint's flowed from the brush, but you can still get a little bit of a flick, a little bit of a wash and staining from the brush. Okay, now the chestnut wash. Nice, very nice rusty colour. Same principle again, on with one, off with the other. Brush on, brush off. And again, just feathering it a little bit there. No really very sharp rusting demarcation because of the wave motion. I don't know whether you can see the differences with the feathering out. So you've got different run lines per se with the water. If it still looks a little bit heavy, just feather it out a bit more, sponge it in. Another thing you can use for moving your washes around, or even soaking them up if you put a bit too much on, is a cotton bud.